Alright guys and gals, for these next few questions, I'm just going to make this one video because they're all asking you to do very similar things, but just with different elements and therefore different charges, okay? So with this first question here, what we're looking at is we want to know what the formula is for the compound, iron 2 chloride. So anytime that we write a formula from a name, we have to know two things first. First, we have to know the symbol of every element or any polyatomic ions involved in this compound, and we also have to know the charges of those elements or polyatomic ions. So we take a look here. Iron is not a polyatomic ion. We know that because we can see it on the periodic table just as it is as iron, and it has the symbol Fe. Now chloride, because it ends in IDE, that is a hint to you that that is just the bonded name of the element chlorine with the symbol Cl. So now that we know the symbols, we need to determine the charges. Now, if you still are having a difficult time remembering how to find charges or how to do crisscross rule, take a look at some of our previous flashbacks and exit slips, or come and ask me and we'll talk about that first. But for transition metal compounds, we're kind of lucky because this Roman numeral right here tells us the charge of our transition metal. So because this is iron 2, what that's telling me is that this iron atom has a charge of 2 positive. And I know that it's going to be positive because iron is a metal, and metals always become cations. Okay, cations are positively charged, so I know that iron is going to become 2 positive. Now chlorine is not a transition metal, and it's not a polyatomic ion, so we don't need anything special to determine its charge. We just need to look at the periodic table. If we do that, we can see that chlorine is in the 17th family. That tells us it has 7 valence electrons. Now, according to octet rule, chlorine either needs to steal 1 more electron in order to have 8 and become stable, or chlorine needs to give away those 7 that it already has so it can drop down a shell and be stable that way. Well, if we look at this based on just the number of electrons involved, 7 is way more than 1, which means it would require way more energy for chlorine to try to get rid of those 7 electrons. 1 is a much smaller number, which means energy-wise, it's going to be easier for chlorine to just steal 1 electron or gain 1 electron. So that tells us that chlorine is going to have a 1 negative charge. Now that we've figured out the symbols and the charges for each of these, we can combine them. And don't forget, here is where crisscross rule applies. So the symbols stay the same, Fe and Cl. We don't change those at all. But we're going to drop the signs of our charges and we're going to crisscross them. This 2 is going to go over here to chlorine, and this 1 is going to come down here to Fe. But normally you're going to see it written like this without that 1 there. That 1 is kind of assumed. So when you see the name iron 2 chloride, you know that the formula is FeCl2. So let's just quickly review the steps, so that way if you're watching this video for the second or the third time, you'll know what you're looking for in the question that you're looking at. The steps are to first determine the symbol and the charge of every element involved in the compound, which you get from the names up here and from the periodic table. The second step is to crisscross and combine them. And then there is no third step. This is just getting rid of that 1 there at the bottom. So step 1, find the symbol and the charges. Step 2, crisscross and combine. Let me know if you have any questions, guys.